Since returning to Black Desert 2 months ago, I've had a genuinely great time playing the game, and I'd now consider it my main MMORPG. That being said, the game isn't perfect, and I still think there's a lot that can be done to improve it. So in this video I'm going to talk about a few issues the game has, as well as throw out a few ideas on how these things can be improved. Just to bear in mind, I'm only including things in this video that I think can realistically be changed, and the issues mentioned are in no particular order. Number 1. Incentivize group grinding. Black Desert is an MMORPG, and one of the major things I think it struggles with is giving players a good reason to group up when grinding mobs for money or XP. Currently, the only time grouping up is actually beneficial is when you have low level gear and want to grind at a highly contested spot that you'd struggle to solo. Once you get to the point of having average gear, however, group grinding is less efficient than grinding solo. This is due to the diminishing XP rates for being grouped. In a 2-man group you get 60% XP, and in a 3 to 5-man group you get 50% XP. Now, back in the day when everyone had bad gear and the new high level areas were released, group grinding was by far the best way to go, because you didn't kill things so fast that you'd run out of mobs. However, nowadays that's not the case. There's very few grind spots in the game that geared players can benefit from being in a group with. A simple fix for this would be to increase the XP you get from being grouped by 10% across the board, so 70% as a duo and 60% as a trio or more. Overall, I think grouping should always be better XP than grinding solo, but not to the point where grinding solo isn't viable. We just need to find a better balance, which we don't currently have. Number 2. Karma system rework. Currently there's a big issue in the game with people that grief other players out of their grinding spots by doing something known as karma bombing. To karma bomb someone, you basically go to their grind spot, kill their mobs, ignore them when they ask you to leave, and bait them into killing you. The player you've pissed off will then flag for PvP, kill you, and lose karma. You then keep coming back until the guy you're griefing has ran out of karma and can no longer kill you without going negative, forcing them to either leave their spot or get their guild to declare war on your guild, which isn't always possible. Karma bombing is one of the most scummy things you can do in this game, and the fact that there's currently no system in place preventing this from happening is really annoying. Apparently in the Korean version of Black Desert though, a system has been added which makes it so when you flag and kill another player, you can keep killing them for the next 10 minutes without losing karma. As much as I think this system could be abused by higher geared players, I genuinely hope we get this or something similar added to our version of the game. I don't really think it's possible to design a perfect karma system, but in its current state it causes nothing but frustration. Number 3. Awakened relic scrolls. One of the most tedious and boring things in Black Desert currently is farming ancient relic scrolls, pillar phase scrolls, or forbidden book scrolls for memory fragments. If you want to upgrade your boss armor, you have no choice but to do this, and spend hours upon hours every week doing so. On the NA servers this isn't too much of an issue, as memory fragments are always available on the marketplace, but for the EU servers that isn't the case. I'd really appreciate it if we could have an awakened version of these scrolls, similar to the awakened daily scrolls that we already have. An awakened relic scroll would basically give us more challenging monsters to kill and reward more loot. To make the scroll, you just combine 5 of the normal scrolls together to get an awakened version. I don't really see what purpose the normal version of these scrolls have. The monsters that spawn from them offer 0 challenge and can be easily one-shot. The animations for the monsters spawning are painfully long, and you need to do about 40 or more of these scrolls at a time to get a meaningful amount of memory fragments to use for gear upgrading. It's repetitive, uninteresting content that you feel as though you've experienced enough of as soon as you've done it for the first time. If making an awakened version of these relic scrolls isn't possible for whatever reason, just give us an additional way of obtaining memory fragments. Number 4. Novice network and mentor system. As Black Desert is extremely complex in comparison to other MMORPGs, something I think it could greatly benefit from is some kind of mentor system or novice chat channel, similar to what Final Fantasy A Realm Reborn does. Once a player reaches a certain combat level or amount of house fame, they can choose to become a mentor and help new players with advice for weekly or monthly rewards. To make sure this system isn't abused, the player asking for advice would get a pop-up appear saying, "Did this player answer your question?" followed by a yes or no option. To maintain mentor status, a player would need to successfully answer a certain amount of questions per week, otherwise they would lose mentor status and receive a cooldown period before they could become a mentor again. I'm sure there's probably better ways to do a mentor system, but but this is just something I came up with off the top of my head. Regardless, it's something I'd love to see implemented into the game. Number 5, better thought out events. There's not much to say here other than stop creating events that force the entire server onto 1 or 2 channels at a specific location. It's always unplayable, frustrating, and the game clearly isn't built to handle it. The weekly tax cart event is a great example of this. To achieve 10 frames per second or more, you need to turn your graphics to the lowest it'll allow, and even then it feels like you're playing a GIF. Another recent example was the anniversary event bosses, when someone decided it was a good idea to spawn multiple event bosses at a single location on only 6 channels. The result was disconnects, 4 frames per second on the lowest graphics, massive queue times, and overall a rather unenjoyable experience. I get that the idea of bringing a lot of players together for an event is a cool one, but when the game becomes unplayable as a result of that, even for people with PCs worth thousands of dollars, you know the game clearly isn't capable of handling it. Number 6, rework the veteran and playtime rewards. This is quite a small thing that I'm pretty sure will be changed at some point, but regardless it's worth bringing up in this video. The playtime rewards for players that have invested thousands of hours into the game are quite bad. The 10,000 hour one in particular has a worse reward than the 5,000 hour one. You're given a skill reset and appearance change coupon. Odds are if you've played for 10k hours you do not need to reset your skills, and odds are you're also using a value pack, so the appearance change coupon is also pointless. Investing 10,000 hours into a game is crazy dedication, so I think the least that could be done for these players is give them a coupon for a free cash shop costume or something. Number 7, marketplace improvements. Now I know much has been done already to improve the marketplace in Black Desert, such as adding the pre-order option and bid phase to all items, however I still think there's room for improvement. Something I and many others find incredibly annoying is how the cheapest item must always be purchased first, even when there's thousands of that specific item already listed. An example of this is I'm trying to buy 600 Blackstones. I scroll down the list to look at the larger stacks to buy first, but I can't because one person has listed a single Blackstone for minimum price. Everyone wanting to buy Blackstones needs to wait 30 to 40 seconds every minute or so for that item to come out of bid phase and be bought out before they can continue to buy Blackstones. A simple suggestion to fix this would be items that are in high demand and have a high supply do not have a bidding phase, and the cheapest item does not need to be purchased first. Another thing I'd like to see is the marketplace display items that are being sold in real time. Currently the only way to see if an item has been sold is to refresh the market. Otherwise, items that have already been bought out still appear, resulting in the item already sold notification if you try to buy it. The same thing also occurs with the worker exchange and horse market. It's just a small annoying issue, but one that I'd like to see improve. Number 8, incentivize high level grinding spots for high level players. Something that seems extremely flawed from a design perspective is how low level grinding spots such as pirates and swordsons still give some of the best experience in the game for players at level 59 and above. I recently watched a stream of a guy on NA that grinded from 61 to 62 exclusively at pirates, an area intended for players between the levels of 55 and 57. Once you hit level 56 and ask any high level player where should I grind, they all say the same thing, pirates or swordsons until 60 plus, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Surely at level 60 you should be fighting level 60 mobs for the best XP, but in Black Desert that's not the case. It's more efficient to grind a dense pack of mobs that you can kill by blinking in their direction than killing mobs at your level that deal a lot more damage and have a lot more health. Currently, the hardest and highest level grind spots in the western version of Black Desert are Ackman and Histria Ruins, 2 massive dungeons beneath the desert. These are some of the only grind spots in the game that you kinda need a group to grind efficiently, yet in terms of XP they give roughly the same as soloing Pirates Jungle and a lot less money per hour. I personally spent around 10 hours grinding Ackman with some of the highest geared players on EU, yet never felt as though the extra effort of finding a group, spending millions of silver on buffs and finding the portal in the desert was worth the time in the slightest. Which is kinda sad because aesthetically those places look amazing and clearly a lot of work went into designing them, yet nobody goes there. Basically what I'm trying to say is something needs to be done to get high level players grinding at the high level spots. I think increasing the amount of XP you get per mob at your level or above would be a good start. Number 9, make enhancing gear less tedious. Now what I mean by this this has nothing to do with the RNG, as infuriating as it may be at times. What I mean by less tedious is the process of gaining things like fail stacks, having to switch to multiple alt characters constantly, sitting through loading screens, degrading your fail stack gear on a negative karma alt when it gets to plus 15, and recovering maximum durability on fail stack gear. It's a long, boring process that you need to go through that doesn't really have a whole lot to do with upgrading the piece of gear that you actually want to enhance. So how can we make this less tedious? Well, one thing that could be done is give your main character access to your alt character's fail stacks without having to switch to them. This would save you sitting through a ton of loading screens and allow you to do all your enhancing on one character whilst still receiving the benefit you get from having multiple alts. Another thing that could be done is allow players to buy an item that can be bound to a piece of green or grey fail stacking gear, which prevents the maximum durability from being lost when enhancement is failed. The downside to this would be that the item you bind it to would become permanently untradeable and you can't extract your blackstones from it. This way people couldn't exploit the system and make money from upgrading. The upside is that you'd save a ton of time from not recovering maximum durability constantly on fail stack gear, as well as players not being bound to Velia as their main base purely for the Reblath armor vendor. And the final thing that could be done is allow players to pay a certain amount of silver to degrade a piece of gear directly from the armor vendor, saving you the hassle of making a negative karma alt and dying over and over for the RNG chance of gear degrading. If not, at least increase the degrade chance on gear that's green quality or below. Now, I'm sure a lot of you would prefer an entire revamp of the gear upgrading system as a whole, and honestly, I would too. I recently enhanced Tet Tree Boss armor and Tet Beg gloves myself, and my reaction wasn't, fuck yeah, I just got a piece of best in slot endgame gear. It was more along the lines of, finally, I'm done enhancing for now, which obviously shouldn't be the case. I just think it's more likely that small changes such as what I've suggested will make it into the game, rather than complete system overhauls. Number 10. Make Siege PvP less stale. Currently, the only thing holding me back from joining a Siege guild in Black Desert is how holding a castle basically only gives you one opportunity to have a good guild vs guild fight per week, and even then there's a big chance people won't even show up to fight. This is because holding a castle gives the defending guild a massive advantage. It's almost impossible to 1v1 another guild as an attacker and take the territory unless you massively outgear the defenders, which usually isn't the case. The result of this on the EU scene is that the best guilds, such as Addicted for example, get stuck with a castle for weeks and nobody comes to contest them, because it would probably take 3 or more strong guilds teaming up to even stand a chance. For the guild defending the castle to get some PvP, they have two choices: either give away the castle to a random guild and fight to take another territory next week, or hold it in hopes that someone shows up to fight. To fix this and make Siege PvP more interesting, I think there's a few things that can be done. The first thing I'd like to see added to the game is a system that allows guilds to make temporary alliances in sieges. When an alliance is formed, everyone in the contested territory gets a notification, similar to when a guild is declared on for war. The guilds in the alliance can't attack each other and can therefore push as a unit, giving them a better chance of liberating the territory. Another thing I'd like to see is the option for guilds that already own a castle to be able to fight for other territories. Obviously, in doing so, they would be giving up their castle to one of the guilds that decides to contest their territory. I think this would be good in preventing guilds from feeling like they're stuck with a castle and can't get a decent fight. It would also encourage smaller guilds to come to castle sieges, as there's a greater chance of victory. Personally, if these changes ever made it into the game, I'd be a lot more interested in joining a siege guild. Number 11. Better optimization. When out and about in the world, Black Desert seems to run really well. In mass scale PvP, however, the game seems to struggle. Obviously, I have no idea how this would be fixed, but it's something I see players complain about a lot. That, as well as desync and the fact that using a siege elephant drops people down to 3 FPS and causes the game to crash. I think better optimization across the board would be good, and if it's possible, I'd love to see the pop-in issue this game has be fixed, as it's the #1 reason a lot of my viewers don't play the game. Not too long ago though, it was announced that Pearl Abyss was teaming up with Silicon Studio to use their Yebis post-processing software. My only hope is it will improve the game's performance and maybe find a solution for the pop-in, who knows though. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope most of you take it for what it is, which is my way of putting across constructive feedback. Obviously, I'm quite invested in Black Desert at at the moment, and I just want to see the game continue to do well. If I didn't, I wouldn't have bothered getting to level 60 in 2 months, so try not to be too triggered. If you've got any of your own suggestions for improving the game, or you want to critique my suggestions, then I'd love to read it in a comment below. Thanks for watching, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you again really soon.